Hi, hello. This is Aston from the future, dropping in to say that I am aware that this video is extremely late. I normally post my wrap-ups in the week that I film them. In this case, in the week that I filmed it, my laptop broke. Honestly, it's only been like 3 weeks, so fair enough, right? Here I present to you from my new laptop, my July wrap-up.
Happy Salt Air Month to all who celebrate. It is the 7th, which means that I am 8 months on tea. I don't have any changes to report on, so I'm just gonna skip over that part. I also only read 3 books this month, so this is gonna be a very quick video, hopefully. The first book I read this month was Against the Loveless World, which I got at the Lighthouse Bookshop in Edinburgh, which you could have seen in my last video. I think I did a book haul. I immediately read it. It was great. As the guy who recommended it to me said, it's very well researched. I kind of had this theory that it would be easier for me to learn about what it's like to be Palestinian, to live in Palestine as a Palestinian, to understand the conflict from the perspective of a fictional character, or not even so much a character, but I just didn't really want to read like a non-fiction. I didn't think that would hit as hard as a fiction book or a memoir would have. I was right about that. This book taught me a lot. This is about a woman who is in an Israeli prison. Her parents are Palestinian, but she was born in Kuwait and raised there and lived there for pretty much all of her youth until she is supposed to move to Jordan. And then eventually she decides to move to Palestine and get like reacquainted with her ancestral land. And she makes some friends there. She meets a lot of people there. She kind of builds community there. And then she kind of accidentally, kind of not, joins the resistance. And it kind of snowballs from there to the point where she gets arrested and thrown in prison. And the book is about her prison experience, but also about her relaying the entire story of her life. It's a very good insight on Palestinian life under the occupation. So if you're looking for a book like that, this is a very good one. It was recommended to me very highly, and now I recommend it very highly to you. The next book I read is something completely different. It's Boating for Beginners by Jeanette Winterson. This is the second book that she wrote, and that's fucking crazy to me because this is the first thing that she wrote after Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, which is all about her childhood trauma surrounding her mother and religion. And this book is a retelling of Noah's Ark in the silliest possible way imaginable. But it also has an underlying layer of a relationship between a mother and a daughter, which was so very interesting to me, knowing that this was written so quickly after Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit. Like, that's kind of crazy. I think this is the funniest book I've ever read. I don't really read funny books in general, but this one was very funny. It was very silly, really, and it was a great time. I also think that it was very timely. Like, this was written in the 80s, but I think that it makes a lot more sense now to put like Noah's Ark, like doomsday end time, to put that in the now with everything that's going on right now. It makes a lot more sense for now than it maybe did in the 80s, although there was also a lot going on in the 80s, obviously. But yeah, I think we should bring this book back. I read somewhere that Jeanette disowned this book, like, doesn't really want to talk about it anymore, but I do want to talk about it because I think it was very funny and timely. And I think that people who are feeling a little bit hopeless about the state of the world currently would get a kick out of this because it's funny. It was a good time. And then the next thing, and the last thing, like I said, I only read 3 books, but the most embarrassing thing about that is that I've been reading this book for literal months. I think I started it in February, and now here we are. I finally finished Braiding Sweetgrass. I read one essay a day for a couple of weeks to get here finally, because I took a little break in between. But anyway, this is just one of the greatest books I've ever read. I'm sure if you're around here on the BookTube hemisphere, you have heard of this book a million times. A lot of people have been talking about this, as they should. It's just really good. There is not that much more I can say about it. Like, you really just have to read this book. Period. That's it. It's what it says on the tin. It's indigenous wisdom, scientific knowledge, and the teachings of plants. And it just gives you a completely different lens, or like a fresh lens, maybe, or like just a nice, warm lens to look at the world through and find the magic in it and appreciate a lot more. I think I have been looking at the world very differently since I started reading this book in a very good way. Also, in a bit of a sad way, because at least where I live, there is not as much nature to be in wonder of. But this actually did inspire me to start a balcony garden. I have two pots of herbs on my balcony now and a strawberry plant. So, hey, that is something. I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't read this book. At least it's added a little bit of life to my balcony. I think there's a lot of things that this book has. It's just kind of like snuck into my life and changed my vision on a lot of things. Like, not really, because I think that my vision was already heading this way, but this has helped it quite a lot. And I appreciate it very much for that. It's also inspired me to look into more indigenous teachings, folklore, cultures, anything. And I'm now currently, I'll just talk about this because these are the only three books and I don't have that much to say about them aside from read them. All three books I read are recommendations to you. Isn't that great? I may have only read three, but all three of them were good. That's nice, isn't it? Yeah, what I was saying is this book has inspired me to look into specifically Australian Indigenous literature because here's a little fun fact about me, I guess, but my mom is from Australia, so I kind of grew up surrounded by decorative boomerangs and didgeridoos all around the house, but like I do not know anything about that culture, so I really want to get into that now. That's why I have picked up a book. I'll just get it, it's on my couch. I got it at the library because I realized that Australian literature is very underrepresented on booktube, but also just like in the market in general, because I couldn't find any of the books that I found in Australian people's Australian book recommendations videos. I couldn't find any of them in bookstores. I checked on the internet, they just don't have them, at least not in English. They have some Dutch translations, but I'm not going to read English and Dutch. Anyway, the book that I found most highly recommended was The Yield by Tara June Winch. I'm here, so I'm almost finished. This book is excellent. It has a little bit of everything that I wanted, and it's really good. I think it's a very good entryway into Australian literature and learning more about First Nations people. I guess I'll talk about it more next month, but I can tell you now that it has like three stories kind of going on in it. It's about a young woman who has kind of fled from her hometown in Australia and is now living in London, but then her grandfather dies and so she comes back, and there's a lot of stuff going on there. It's all centered around this one town because her grandfather was writing a dictionary, and we also get to read the dictionary. It's a dictionary of Aboriginal words, but instead of like just explaining what they mean, he also like adds his own personal stories to them, which is a really great touch to this book. And then there's also a letter from the guy who built up the town where they live, the white guy immigrant. It was a Christian mission kind of deal, but he's speaking up about the abuse that the native people faced around this time, which was like the late 19th century into the 20th century. And obviously, from the modern day point of view, you can very much still see the after effects, like the aftershocks of everything that was going on at that time. And this is a really good book, I think. I haven't finished it yet, but the vibes are really like there. Like you can really feel what that town feels like, and you can really feel the pain of what the Australian natives have gone through this main character. It's very good. It's won the Miles Franklin Award, which is, I believe, the greatest Australian literary award that exists. I don't know. I turned into an Australian there. So yeah, I probably also recommend this one, but I will wait with that for the next wrap up when I've actually finished it. That was honestly that for this month. You know what? Last year in July, I read 12 books and my brain was completely fried. I think you can watch my wrap up from last July. I was a mess. I was not mentally present. For some reason, that wasn't good for my brain. Lately, I feel like reading costs me a lot of mental energy, and I've just been giving into that. Like, I'm not forcing myself to read 50 pages a day anymore. I do force myself to read every day, but that's just because I want to. And I just see what I can do, try to keep it fun and not a chore. Well, it's never a chore, but sometimes it costs a lot of energy and it just shouldn't. It should be a leisure activity. So, yeah, I'm not as hard on myself, I guess. I wasn't that hard on myself last year. I was just having a blast reading all these books, but it was not good for my brain. Well, that was all for now. Now I am on my way to go pick the one and only Sally Thames up from the airport because she's coming to visit me for a couple days. It's going to be fun. See you next month. Bye.